This is Simcity, Maxis' new online-only reboot of the classic 1989 city builder. It's one of those games that makes me say wow a lot. Like, wow, I can't believe how good this looks. Just look at all the detail everywhere. Wow, it blows my mind that each one of these thousands of citizens is individually tracked as they go from home to work to leisure activities and back again. It's insane. And of course, wow, I can't believe how badly they screwed up the launch with this stupid online requirement. Holy crap, what a mess that was. The good news is that a week after that just spectacularly bad first impression, most of it is behind us. Don't get me wrong, there are still a lot of issues that Maxis needs to clean up here, but SimCity is at least at a point where it's as reliably playable as most new online games, as far as being able to log in and load a saved city whenever you want goes anyway. All of the basic fundamentals of building a city work reasonably well, and they're mostly easy to use thanks to the really well done UI bar at the bottom of the screen. The road drawing tool can be finicky sometimes though, and the train station in particular is a pain to set up right. But otherwise, this is by far the prettiest and most user-friendly city builder I've ever seen. All of the art and music is excellent, and pretty much every action has some kind of really satisfying sound effect and animation to it. And I love all the unique sounds that play whenever you click a building to examine it. That's a really great detail. Laying out a good city is a challenge of foresight. It took a little experimentation before I started to pick up some of the major do's and don'ts of traffic planning and on the ideal ratios of residential, commercial, and industrial zones. There's a real sense of pride that comes from building up a successful city, and particularly if you use the inefficient but still useful free drawing road tool, you're likely to end up with a pretty unique creation. City sizes are kept frustratingly small though, and all maps are the same tiny size. This SimCity wants to be less about building a standalone metropolis and more about building a network of smaller, more specialized cities that all support each other. Those cities can either be run by up to 15 other players, or all by yourself hopping between them, and they can all pool their resources to benefit the entire region. This is a really interesting idea for multiplayer city building, and it could have been a lot of fun if it worked right. But it very rarely does. I couldn't reliably share resources like water and electricity between cities like I'm supposed to, and that completely breaks the whole point of this system, and in fact the entire always online requirement. It makes me kind of sad to think that a broken feature like this is the reason I can't save my city, unleash some of these great UFO attack and zombie outbreak disasters, and then revert back to the saved version. So far, it's really not a good trade-off at all. Another limitation of those small maps is that the terrain is set in stone, no pun intended, and it can only be slightly altered by using roads. That's kind of a downer if you wanted to make a Venice-style city or recreate a hill in your hometown, but there are dozens of maps to choose from. Most of those maps also have another new feature: exploitable natural resources like oil, coal, and ore. Those can all be extracted and refined into more valuable commodities and sold off for a profit. I do like how these resources are all randomly distributed, because it gives me a reason to change up my city's design each time. But my issue is they effectively turn SimCity into a trading game rather than a city builder. And that just lets me effectively ignore the city itself if I want to. There's nothing inherently wrong with a business game, it just seems out of place when I'm supposed to be a mayor and not a CEO. There are other city specializations like tourism and gambling, and they work a little bit differently. But I really can't get them to work consistently at all. After a while, people just suddenly stop showing up to landmarks and casinos I build. That's gotta be a bug. In fact, sometimes it feels like there are as many bugs running around SimCity as virtual people. Now, it's entirely possible that a few of these things aren't bugs at all, but SimCity just hasn't explained to me why they're happening. It's actually pretty bad at that, which is surprising considering all of its really cool information overlay views. But outside of the brief tutorial, Maxis just doesn't really cover how a lot of things work, and figuring them out by yourself can be tricky. One more thing. At the time of this review, the fastest time acceleration speed has been disabled because of server problems. Not being able to use cheetah speed really messes up the pace of play, since you have to spend a lot more real-world time tapping your foot and waiting for enough cash to roll in to be able to build anything. Fortunately, this is supposedly temporary. In SimCity, Maxis created what's indisputably the most elaborate and detailed city builder game ever made, and then went out of its way to layer on top of that a complex multiplayer system with all the same weaknesses as a typical MMO. With so many points of potential failure, it's really not all that surprising that SimCity breaks down frequently. I can still recommend it to people who love a good city builder because it's really awe-inspiring to watch it work, and there's nothing else quite like it out there. But only with the caveat that these bugs are lurking, and the longer you play, the more likely you are to get frustrated. For more on SimCity, head over to IGN.